What up guys, SuperMetal983 here bringing us another album review, and this is my fourth attempt to do this video, so hopefully nothing goes wrong this time. But yeah, I'm going to be reviewing the new album from the band Make Them Suffer, entitled How to Survive a Funeral. This was released under Rise Records. Now, if you're not too familiar with Make Them Suffer, they are an Aussie-based metalcore, sort of deathcore band, and I first got introduced to this band back in, I think it was 2012, with the release of their debut album entitled Never Bloom. Now that album is a little bit of a different kettle of fish compared to their later albums, where it's more straight up black and deathcore with symphonic elements in there, and it's just an absolutely amazing album if you ask me. It's one of the best deathcore albums in the past 10 years, easily for me anyway. It's absolutely fantastic. If you haven't heard it, make sure you do so. It is quality. So yeah. But then the band sort of started to change their style up a little bit, especially on their 2015 album entitled Old Souls, which, yes, they still had a lot of deathcore elements in there and a couple of blackened elements here and there, but you could see that they were starting to progress their sound in more of a sort of metalcore sort of direction, you could say, on some of the songs. In particular, the lead single that they released off that album, which was called Let Me In, which is an absolutely amazing song, and the album's pretty great as well, but to me anyway, it didn't hold as much of a candlelight to the likes of Never Bloom, because that album, as I said, incredible album. But then the band started to progress even more into the whole metalcore sort of sound with their last album in 2017 entitled Worlds Apart. Now, in all honesty, it is a decent album to listen to, but for me, anyway, it doesn't have the elements of Make Them Suffer that I loved on Old Souls and, indeed, Never Bloom, because I felt like the darker elements in there and the bleakness of those two records just kind of wavered off on Worlds Apart, and it just felt like another metalcore album, personally. It's decent for what it is, but it just doesn't... it's not an album that I really listen to an awful lot, but it's a decent listen. But yeah, so this new album, I didn't really have a lot of expectations going into it, and upon release day, there was a lot of people on Facebook saying it's absolutely incredible, this new album, and that it could be one of the best albums of the year, and it piqued me interest, because not a lot of people were saying that about Worlds Apart, personally. But anyway, moving on. So yeah, we're gonna, well, basically, I decided, you know what, people's actually talking high hopes about this, so I'll give it a shot, and here we are today to do a review of it. So yeah, it's 10 tracks and runs around 36 minutes in length, and honestly, this surpasses Worlds Apart by miles. And to be honest, it surpasses Old Souls by miles, to be honest. And to be honest, I actually think that this is just as good, if not better, than Never Bloom. That's how good this album is, because this album, honestly, is becoming one of my favourite and go-to metalcore albums at the moment, because this, from beginning to end, is absolutely fantastic, if you ask me. I love everything to do with this album, like the feels, the production, the overall songwriting, the riffs, the drum work, the symphonics. Everything on this album is absolutely fantastic and screams out quality, if you ask me. And it did kind of surprise us, especially with kind of getting let down by Worlds Apart, but this album definitely brings back that sort of like darker atmosphere, and that not necessarily like a blackened sort of atmosphere. It's just quite dark and quite mournful in its delivery, and obviously How to Survive a Funeral kind of gives that that sort of vibe. So I was hoping for some like mournfulness behind, and kind of a bit of sorrowfulness in there for good measure, and it is scattered across this album, because the beauty in this album, on top of the heavy riffs, just blows your mind of how good it is, and how the transitions feel so good, because in general the album has a lot of riffs on here. Like, this has some of the catchiest riffs I have heard so far this year. Like, may not be the heaviest riffs I've heard this year. I mean, there's a track on here which we'll get to in a second, which could be up there as being one of the heaviest, but in general, it's not the heaviest album this year. That would probably go to the Acacia Strain, but this album, for grooves, for riffs, and actually feel-good riffs, or the term that I used to use all the time, money riffs, this has a lot of them. And particularly on the little intro track that we have called Step 1, there's a little bit of a taster of that. But in general, the song Bones, that riff is one of the most signature riffs I have heard this year, period. Because this is, that song and is just incredible in general. But that groovy, it kind of feels a bit swingy when you listen to it. It just clicked with me instantly. I was just like, yeah, that is one of the best riffs I've heard this year. And if you've heard it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's not just all riffs and shows here. There is some real aggressive measures behind this out and songwriting here, like particularly on the song Drown With Me, which is the heaviest song on this album and is up there as being one of the heaviest songs of this year. I mean, that last breakdown, man, just hits so fucking hard, man. And I think his name's Sean. His vocals, when they come in really demonically low, like for the first couple of songs of this album, 1, 2 and 3, you don't really feel like he's going to go into that sort of like lower register, but then when it comes in, you just needed to hit that specific note, that brown note, and I was just pulling the sting face when that kicked in and just bopping along, and oh man, it sounded so fucking good. So props on that song. It just absolutely killed. That is going to erupt some shows, well, erupt some crowds when they play gigs again. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. But anyway, another song that I would particularly like to talk about is the song Erase Me, which is a song I believe they did a music video for. I only recently discovered that before I did this review. So, but yeah, that song, that might be one of my, that is my favourite song on this album, but it might go up there as being one of my favourite songs of this year. It's up there with the likes of Another Breath by Ingested and The Other Side by Malevolence, for example. Just the catchy chorus on that, just especially when you go from Bones to that groovy riff, to the heaviness of Drown With Me, to the beauty in Erase Me, the beautiful chorus in that. I just can't fault it, man. It blew me away when I first heard it, and I couldn't stop singing that chorus, and you will do when you hear that track. It's absolutely fucking amazing. And also, I might as well add, I can see why people have been hyping up about this album as well, because every track, there is no sleeper tracks on this album. There's no space fillers, there's no interludes to garnish the album. No, this is just riff after riff and just beautiful melodies. Absolutely fucking love it. Another song I would like to talk about is a one that kind of surprised me a little bit, which was the 9th track entitled The Attendant. Now that one is more of a blissful, kind of sorrow, mournful sort of song, and yeah, that really does make my hairs stand on end, like when I first heard The Other Side. Like, Erase Me, maybe like a little bit more up me favourite songs of the year, but The Attendant is not far behind with that beautiful execution from, like I said, I think his name's Sean, and Buga, I think her name is, the newer keyboard player she came in on the last album. Her beautiful vocals, not like overpowering sort of clean vocals, they're just blissful in the mix and just execute with so much ease, and it just feels so good, man. It's such a feel-good album. It shouldn't feel with the title of How to Survive a Funeral, but it's just so blissful to listen to, and it just took me by surprise, that song. I absolutely fucking love it. And Sean's clean vocals on this album as well. My God, absolutely incredible. And then, the one thing I do admire about that song is it feels like an outro to the album sort of thing. So when you get to the end of it, you're just like, wow. And then you hear the riff of the last song, which is called That's Just Life, and you're back up to headbanging and bopping along with those riffs. I mean, this has some really fucking mint riffs on here. I've said it before and I'll say it again. But yeah, and the production behind this album is very, very good as well. Like, I love the one element I like, and it's one thing that I do love about Ingested's Surpassing the Boundaries of Human Suffering, my second favourite album of all times. And that is, the triggers on here sound pretty clicky, but it kind of adds to the overall groove and character of this album, like especially on any of the songs on this album in general. Like, when the groove kicks in and it starts to get a bit more boppy, those triggers just merge well with it, I feel, and it sounds very, very good. And then in general, the grooves from the actual beats just sound really fucking good. The drum work is absolutely fantastic on this album, and honestly, I cannot question the riffs. As I said, the beautiful melodies and the power of those guitars, absolutely incredible. And then obviously the keyboards is a big part of Make Them Suffer's sound, and it was on both, sorry, all three of those albums that I've mentioned. But this one, I feel like they're executed even better, they're even more refined, and they just sound absolutely incredible. They complement every song in such a significant way. It just sounds absolutely fantastic. So props as I said, I think her name's Booker. Yeah, I'm going to say Booker, I'm sure it is. I'm probably wrong on that, but you know, when have I not been wrong? Anyway, so yeah, absolutely incredible stuff on there. And then Sean's vocals, his range is getting better and better. From the first hour where he sounded like just another deathcore vocalist, but then with those high screams having the certain black metal influence there, really set them apart at the time. But ever since then, his kind of half screams have been improving, his clean singing is improving, but he's still maintaining that ferocious growl and scream that he's got. It just sounds absolutely incredible, and this album definitely is a perfect representation of Make Them Suffer and their growth, because like as I said, I prefer it way more than Worlds Apart. I prefer it to All Souls, but it is just as good, if not better, than Never Bloom. Absolutely fantastic record. And one other thing, just to remark on Never Bloom, the song Fallen Ashes on here definitely has that sort of Never Bloom sort of atmosphere when it kicks in with those blast beats going, and you know, towards the end of the song, it just really has that kind of like black and dismal sort of feel where it's not like black and deathcore, it just has that sort of Never Bloom sort of feel, so it kind of like brings it back to the modern time sort of thing. But anyway, yeah, this album is absolutely fantastic. One of the best metalcore albums I have heard in 2020, and you just need to hear. Everyone's been hyping up about it, and you need to check this out. It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, what more can I say? Incredible album. So for an overall score on this album, I'm going to give this a solid 9 out of 10. Absolutely incredible album. I'll definitely recommend you check out the songs Bones, Drown With Me, Erase Me, and The Attendant. I'll leave links down below, 2 tracks to check out. Those will probably be the 4 ones that I checked. There might be a 5th one. We'll see what happens. So make sure you check out this album. Absolutely fantastic. And I'll see you until the next video. And remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.